A man gazes across the bay in front of him. He watches a mighty host, 26,000 men, they say, 26,000 Persians, come to take his land, his home. He looks back at his fellow Athenians. Only 10,000, but it is all they have. All that stands between freedom and death. In the year 490 BCE, on this bay in northeast Attica, a battle took place that would shape the future of Western civilization. This is that story. A story of a small Greek army, hopelessly outnumbered. But they will not back down. This battle will shape history, in this bay named Marathon. Our tale begins with the Persian Empire, which at this time was ruled by Darius I, whose ambition was to expand his empire westward. His target? Greece, a collection of fiercely independent city-states that he believed rightfully belonged to him. In 499 BCE, the Ionian revolt, supported by Athens and Eritrea, had challenged Persian authority. They were quickly crushed, but Darius would never forget. Darius vowed to punish those who dared defy him and those who would help them, so his eyes set on Athens. For the next decade, he planned his revenge, gathering strength. By 490 BCE, Darius had gathered a massive expeditionary force. His army was estimated to be around 26,000 strong, comprised of infantry, archers, and cavalry, an army to rival any attempt the Greeks would make. Commanded by the generals Datis and Artaphernes, the Persian force set sail for Greece. Its destination? The shores of Marathon, about 42 kilometers from Athens. Meanwhile, in Athens, the news of the Persian landing caused a little panic. The Athenians knew that if the Persians captured Marathon, they would march on Athens and raze it to the ground. The Athenian assembly decided to confront the invaders at Marathon, a flat plain where their hoplite army could be effectively deployed. The Athenian general Miltiades, who was once an officer in the Persian army, understood the enemy well, so together with the polemarch Callimachus, he was elected to lead the defence of Greece. He devised a plan to confront the Persians head-on in Marathon. Miltiades wished to strike swiftly, and before the Persians could fully establish themselves. The terrain of Marathon would work to their advantage. The Greek army was trained to fight in the hardlands of Greece, against heavily armoured and strong foes. They were heavy units, called hoplites, who were trained in the mountains, in all the conditions Greece could give. The Persians, however, were lighter armoured, more suited for deserts and the heat of Persia. Miltiades wished to use this to his advantage. The Persian fleet landed at Marathon, with the arrogance only held by the confident, sure in their numerical superiority. Their army vastly outnumbered the Greeks, by 3-1. However, the Persians may have had the numbers, but the Greeks had a plan. The Athenians sought help from Sparta, but the Spartans were too busy throwing the party of all parties. Yes, seriously. They refused because there was a religious festival going on, and they simply couldn't go. The Athenians, alongside their allies from Plataea, decided not to wait for the Spartan allies to finish their fun, and went to engage the Persians without delay, since catching them before they were fully established was crucial, and so their force marched to Marathon. When they arrived, they saw the great Persian host. Miltiades proposed a bold and unconventional strategy. Instead of taking up defense positions and hoping to hold out long enough for more allies to arrive, Miltiades proposed a direct assault. Yes, this man planned to attack an army 3 times his size, just because it's what no one would expect. But this was no suicide charge he had planned. He had a trick up his sleeve. The Greek formation. The Greek formation was key. He weakened the centre of his line and strengthened the wings instead. This was a risky maneuver, designed to envelop the enemy. Very similar to a certain Alp-leaping Carthaginian we know of, who would use this move a couple hundred years later. The Greeks, heavily armoured and highly disciplined, lined up in the phalanx formation. The Greek phalanx was feared across the world. It was comprised of rows of shields, with men behind them with spears poking out, forming a grisly wall of death and destruction to any who happened to be on the unfortunate end of the spear. And once this phalanx was formed, they began their march towards the Persians, determined to protect their land and their freedom. The Persians, seeing the Greek line advancing, were initially surprised by the sheer audacity of the move. They had not expected this plan because, well, quite frankly, it was a ridiculous one, and when they saw the Greeks crest the hill, they scurried to form up to counter them. The archers formed first, stringing their bows and taking aim. The Greeks had just come into their range of fire, and they planned on bringing them down with arrows alone. This is when they surprised them once more. The second the arrows loosed, the Greeks broke into a sprint. Closing the gap, the arrows fell uselessly behind them, and with that last rush, the Greeks were on them. The fighting was ferocious, and the chaos immense. Persians still unloading supplies from their ships were caught off guard, the cavalry unprepared, the heavy armour unarmed. It was a complete mess on the Persian side. But, with sheer numbers, they began to fight the Greeks off. The Greek centre, deliberately made weaker, began to give way under the pressure of the Persian advance. The Persians, sensing victory, pushed forward, only to find themselves being drawn into a trap. As the Persian centre advanced, the stronger Greek wings held firm, and then wheeled inwards, encircling the Persians. This pincer movement trapped the Persian troops, causing even more chaos and panic. The heavily armoured hoplites, armed with spears and shields, were well suited to the close quarter combat that ensued. The fighting was intense and brutal. Gradually, the Persian forces began to crumble under the relentless pressure. The encircled Persian troops were either cut down or forced to retreat to their boats in the chaos. The Greeks had executed their strategy perfectly, resulting in decisive victory. The Persians suffered heavy casualties, with over 6,000 dead and countless injured and taken prisoner, while the Greek losses were a mere 200 men. The remnants of the Persian fleet fled to their ships and sailed back to Asia. The Greeks had won. Somehow this army had bested one 3 times its size, sending the message that Greece will not fall. The Persian Empire, which had been deemed unstoppable, were brought to a heel. But the Athenians had only won the battle. The war was far from over, though they didn't know that yet. A war that would be carried on by Darius' son Xerxes decades later, where a small valley pass would be crowned in blood and written about throughout the ages. That battle and those wars all started on this bay. The Athenians, of course, did not know this, and in lieu of their victory, sent a man named Phidippides to return to Athens and tell them of this historic stand. He ran 42 kilometers back to Athens and decreed to the city, "Rejoice, we have won," and promptly fell dead on the spot. This was the first ever marathon. Yep, that's how it started. Now, the Battle of Marathon is a crucial part in Greek history. It was the ending of the First Greco-Persian War and the beginning of the Second. It showed Greece's strength and Persia's possibility for defeat, and established Athens as the strategic masterminds of Greece. If you've enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.